Hello, how are you? Fine? Okay. In my script, I wrote, welcome to the sunny Malaga, but maybe today is not sunny, it's cloudy. Christian, we talk about this, that is like London, and given that we have two Londoners here, they feel very comfortable in Malaga because it's like London. That Christian said that is, now London is warmer than Malaga. Maybe we are changing the roles. Okay, okay. Thank you for being here with us today in this first panel in Vitur. My name is Alfredo Díaz-Araque. I'm here thanks to the Real Estate Club, EA Business School. Okay, I'm the vice president of the club, and we collaborate with Vitur last year and this year too. And thanks Vitur for having us. And this is a very interesting panel because now flex living is booming, it's rocketing. I think that years ago in living, I think there was only long-term rental, but now I think that we are splitting the market in living. There are a lot of offer and there are a lot of demand in different sectors in living, and now flex living, and I said, is booming, and it's in a very interesting moment because it's growing, and when something is new, I think that there are opportunities, a challenge, okay? And maybe the people try to, in his mind, to put the traditional mind in a new market, and maybe we have to create the new mindset, okay, in the people, no? in the customers. And for that reason, the panel, the name of the panel is Flex Living Industry Standardization Towards Excellence Across Europe. For talking about this, we have, I'm going to start from here to here, Leda Zanlungo, that is a leading expert in real estate and tourism strategy and expansion, that comes from Barcelona. All of us, we were in Malaga yesterday, given that the problem with the train in Spain, okay, and for that reason we decided to stay the previous night here, okay. Bruno Lobo, that is an investor in Flex Living, now he's in a change. He told us that he was in London, now he's in Lisbon, and now he's going to go to Amsterdam. It's a clear example of Flex Living. He needs different solutions for the life, okay. Christian Eckley. Christian is a commercial director under the Doormat Group, okay? And finally, Brendan Geraghty is the Geraghty, yeah, that's correct, okay? Is the CEO of the Association for Rental Living. Thanks for being with us. And I think that we are going to start the conversation on when a question that is, where are today, okay? And the questions in general, I can share the question with all of us, is how would you define excellence in the context of flex living across Europe today? And another question, maybe we can mix both, why is standardization becoming such a critical topic for the future of the flex living? Leda, we can start with you.
Good morning, everyone. Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks for having me. So I'll start with the second one, if it is okay with you, which is why it is important, because the sector is growing, and without certain kind of, or certain level of standardization, growth is very difficult to achieve. The sector, and for the one of you who are in the other room, you're seeing that flex living, it comprises a lot of different sectors or a lot of different verticals, and every single one has got its own specificities. And the market is extremely, or the sector is extremely fragmented. So having a certain kind of standardization on the outcomes and on what the sector wants to represent and wants to achieve, it is fundamental to allow growth.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for the invitation as well. I would say from my standpoint as an investor in the living sectors, primarily long stay, build to rent, student housing and senior living, looking at flex living as an emerging sector that's bound to institutionalize, I would say a key feature would be adaptability. So the ability to add on to an existing long stay asset and complement the long-term revenues. And as well, the ability to take on standalone assets as well and be able to function as a diversification of revenue across a mixed-use scheme. In terms of the standardization of the industry across Europe, I think it's key, particularly from an investment standpoint. Investors that looking to create pan-European platforms across Europe, the ability to interact with the standardized sector is key.
Christian.
Hi, everybody. Hi. God, what a football match last night. Wow. Excellence is a hat trick in extra time from Lewandowski. But anyway, so from my perspective, I represent UnderTheDoormat group, and we're a business that is focused around property management as well as the GDS. And we have a property management software platform called Experta as well. And I think the question really is what is the definition of excellence? And I think that really depends on the lens through which you view excellence. If you're a technology provider, excellence for me is about automation. Yeah. My background, by the way, is IBM, and automation to drive out the sort of basic tasks that technology can deliver for you in order that your staff can deliver customer excellence to its customers. From an investor perspective, I think the definition of excellence is confidence. Confidence that the asset is compliant, confidence that the asset is delivering the type of revenue mix that is required. And I think that lastly, if you taking it from a guest perspective, of course, which is the most important perspective, excellence for the guest is about having a seamless and predictable experience, and of course, technology can support that.
Hi, good morning, everybody, and I'm delighted to be here in Malaga today. I think if we're going to pick up the excellence and standardization point, it's really important that we develop this, because what that delivers is trust. And trust is essential to every relationship that we have, whether it be our negotiations with government, with our negotiations or our relationship with our clients and with our customers. And standardization and best practice allows that predictability that has been mentioned already. Our investors love predictability. Government generally likes predictability as well. They need to understand what the standards are. And those standards are across the board. There may be digital standards of excellence, there may be design standards, there'll be experiential standards. But at the end of the day, what the sector is saying is that we deliver at this level, and we consistently deliver at this level, and we will maintain this over time. You can trust us. We are trustworthy, and so therefore you can invest in us or you can pay us to stay in the accommodation. And I think that's the standardization which is really going to matter in the long term, the standardization that delivers the trust that we need to continue in business.
I'm going to ask you another thing about this. Do you think that now excellent standardization is a must, or maybe nice to have, given that we are in a growing market? What do you think about this? At the moment, the excellent standardization is something that we have to achieve right now, or is something that we have to think about, to like a goal in maybe 5 years or something like that? What do you think?
The earlier the better, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
I think it's about time we start really seriously think about it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, from my perspective, standardization unlocks scale, right? And we know that from HP, IBM, Google. You think about those types of organizations, they're highly standardized and they're highly scalable. So it unlocks scale, and then once you unlock scale, you unlock leadership. And then you can start defining the agenda. And I think that if we don't drive standardization, then we will remain fragmented as an industry, and fragmented industries don't scale, right?
I mean, I think standardization must start immediately, and it is a journey. I don't think it ever ends. Mm-hmm. What I do know is that it's extremely difficult. And in my own experience, Association for Rental Living in the UK, getting the industry to agree is a challenging proposition. but that they must agree is essential. So you can't start too soon, and it's a lifelong journey.
Okay. Bruno, from the view of the investor, because maybe the investor wants standardization because for him it's
Sure.
easier and.
Yeah, first I would say, I think it's important to highlight that there are various dimensions of standardization. It can be standardization of regulations, operations, and product. And it's key, the nuances between those. And I think it's also key to highlight that standardization cannot occur at the detriment of flexibility as well. I think as the sector is growing, and to make the same point again, is complementing long-term stay, it's important to keep that flexibility to be able to complement the long-term revenue of the assets that's being added on as well.
Mm-hmm. Perfect, thank you. Let's start with the second block of this chat between friends, that I would like to talk about the challenge and opportunities, given that it's a new market. Always there are challenges and opportunities in all the markets, but maybe we talk that is curious that we have different backgrounds in the industry, in the real estate industry. Maybe Brendan is the expert in this panel about flex living, but each of us has different backgrounds, and maybe it's clear, or maybe it's great for the industry having different backgrounds, because we know other challenges and other opportunities in the market, and maybe we can plug and play the challenge and the solutions. Okay, Brendan, what are the main barriers that you see to achieving industry-wide standards across the different European markets? Because always we think that Europe is okay, 27 countries, perfect, no? It's like when you go to South America, all the people think that given that the people speak the same language and have the same background, all the countries have the same. No, not the same. And maybe in Europe we have some standards that is the law, but maybe there are in each country has their own specifications, and maybe how we can achieve this challenge in Europe.
I mean, I think it's quite difficult because you need to allow for regional variation or country variations, and still bring some level of standardization. But I think the technical aspects of standardization, whether it be design codes or legal requirements, whatever, can be accommodated by a collective agreement on what the proposition is. And what I really mean by that is, what is the brand? How do we create a brand that has a universal appeal, that talks to, it doesn't matter where you are, it talks to a sense of what you can expect to be delivered no matter what the variation is, and then the supporting and the strengthening of that brand is the responsibility of the sectors in every region or every country. And I think brands exist beyond legislation, and they exist beyond geography. It's an emotional language, really. And so what are those requirements? What are those things? So in the UK at the moment, I'm writing a code of practice for the rental living sector, which is more of a corporate thing that deals with some of the technical aspects. But the other side of that is the customer charter, which is written in consumer language, that has no technical references at all, but talks about what our commitment is to the customer, what the customer can expect. The two together build a brand that anybody can understand, and it's now being used in investment appraisals. Are you signed up to the code? Are you not signed up to the code? Because investors know that if you're signed up to the code, you're committing to a long-term behavior that will ultimately support the industry. So we need to rise above borders, I would say, in the pursuit of this.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Leda, how can the sector balance local character, okay, and differentiation while still adhering to the common framework of excellence?
I think by defining the outcome, defining the what needs to be delivered, but leaving flexibility on the how you can deliver what needs to be delivered. Just building on what Bruno was saying about flexibility and standardization, I think the smart way to standardize is to get not the minimum common denominator, but the best of all, right? And it should really raise from innovation the ability to standardize across the board. But allowing brands, allowing different companies to define how to get to an outcome, how to deliver the standards that are set, I think is the way to balance between the two things.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. Bruno, what specific markers of excellence do investors look for when assessing flex living operation for funding or acquisition? And another question for you is, as investors and banks, I think that maybe help you in the investment, how the banks look for this excellence together with you.
Sure. So I'll respond primarily from the perspective of equity investor looking to develop living sector assets across Europe. I think the first one is track record and scale. So the ability to provide underwriting that is supported both internally by investment committees and I guess by lenders as well. So that that is the first key point. The second, I would say, repeatability. So the ability to work with the same operator across different assets and geographies. We typically have a preference for operators which we can work across different assets rather having to underwrite and select a new one for each asset. And the third one, I'll reiterate again the concept of adaptability, of flexibility, and again highlights the importance between the business plan and the design. They are intertwined, and I think we have a preference for operators who have the ability to work with different designs and adapt to different designs as well.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Can I just, I was doing some research last night and I was reading this paper on Savills, and institutional investment within this space right now is significantly growing, isn't it, Bruno? And it's, the statistic I had was that through 2028, according to Savills, institutional investment will grow at 15% CAGR for the next 3 years, and that's a significant amount of money pouring into this sector, isn't it?
Absolutely. I guess broadly across the living sectors in the UK, Spain, and across Europe, it is the real estate asset class that has grown the most and is expected to grow the most. And I guess the flexible living is, I guess, considered a subsector of the wider living sector at the moment, and one that is bound to, it has more growth potential for sure. And I guess ultimately, as it has happened with, for example, co-living or build to rent, I guess more and more investors see it as part of a broad living sector, as operational real estate, which we believe that it's, over time it is merging and intertwining.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. Christian, you joined to UnderTheDoormat at the beginning of this year, okay?
I've been here 3 months.
3 months, yeah, okay. Don't worry, 3 months is enough. 100 days. It's like Donald Trump, close. The same time. Okay, and there is a recent merger between UnderTheDoormat and BIF, and the integration of short-term rental inventory, okay, into GDS's channel. And how do you see the standardization influencing both, distribution strategies, the wider acceptance of flex living products within the corporate and traditional travel sectors? This is a big challenge.
That's a big. How long you got?
Yeah.
So yeah, UnderTheDoormat acquired Vive. Actually, before I joined in January. They acquired them back in July last year, and UnderTheDoormat now has the sort of largest amount of real estate, short-term rental real estate in London and Paris as a result of that. The GDS, i.e. corporate lets, government lets, is a segment that we're tackling through trusted stays. Trusted Stays is a first of its kind in using technology. We are now integrated with Amadeus, which is one of the GDS platforms, where we can deliver short-term rental inventory into the hotel system, if you will. And then from a traditional travel perspective, again, using technology, we recently launched a new product called One Living. And One Living is a combination of a hotel CRM system, which has been developed by a company called Alliance, combining with our PMS technology. And through those two pieces of technology, we're now able to address GDS and, of course, the traditional travel industry as well.
If you don't mind, just because I got a background in Amadeus.
Yes, so I saw that on your LinkedIn.
Yeah, so I think that the first step has been done, which is the integration, which is amazing. What the big challenge now is going to be to educate, how to educate the GDSs and all the traditional players that this sector is reliable and is worth being booked. Because the travel agents and GDSs is all about predictability, but as well easiness to understand and agility, because the booking process is commission-based and you need to be very, very quick. So I think there's a big challenge there and a big work that needs to be done, or job to be done on educating the other player and the sector.
Yep,
so
PMCs.
all the stuff to do.
Yeah.
Perfect. I have another challenge for you, but I'm going to postpone the challenge at the end of the conversation, because I think it's the elephant in the room. Okay. We continue with our script. That is, I would like to talk about operational and standards and quality. Okay. That maybe because right now the people want standards, quality. Maybe we pay for something and we want a special service for the something that we pay. And groupal question, because I prefer this role of groupal question. What operational or quality standards do you believe are critical to successfully positioning short-term rental inventory within traditional travel ecosystems like the GDS? Bruno, if you want, we start with you. Yeah, yes.
I guess from an investor perspective, I guess all we can ask for institutional quality reporting, transparency and reporting. So the same, at the very minimum, the same level of reporting that we receive from the long-term operators. And I guess one point to highlight is also the ability to combine both as well.
I think the operational side is really important, and there's many segments in the market, but if we look at the institutionally backed area of flex living, and if we want to attract that long-term income or that long-term investment into the sector, they are looking for certain things, and fundamentally what they are looking from the operational models and platforms is net operating income and how to grow it. It's that simple. So how do you demonstrate what your NOI is in real terms, and then how do you present that to an investor? And the way that you do that is you collect data on what the whole operational matrix, and you report on that data. So in the UK at the moment, the level of operational consistency is erratic at best, I would say, in terms of how it's reported to investors. The investors come in and the first thing they ask is, which operator should I use? And there's no consistency in the operational presentation or the presentation of the cost of the operations. So another big initiative that we've got going at the moment is data sharing, so that operational costs are standardized and are reported in a consistent manner, and that then can be presented to the investors, who can say, I can see that you're very, very good. We're going to appoint you to run our assets or to be involved in our portfolio. I think the operational real estate as residential real estate is, in a sense, in the long term, in the big institutional markets, is quite new, and it's data poor. So the operators really need to think about how they present their best efforts through the data that they have, and how they will show how they will grow net operating income over time, because that's really all the investors are interested in.
Christian.
I would echo really what Leda mentioned earlier on, which is the GDS is it's based on trust and reliability, isn't it? And for the flexible living sector to move into that channel, if you will, I think there are a few non-negotiables. Firstly, there's compliance. So absolutely, you've got to make sure that the properties have the necessary safety certificates, etc., or within their listing. I think there's standardization of the data upload. So uploading into the GDS is actually quite a challenge. You're smiling. And there's a lot of technology development that we've put into getting those GDS schemas right, and ensuring that you've got cancellation terms, the right prices, availability, all that type of information seamlessly integrating in. And I think that the third point, really the third non-negotiable for me in terms of pushing your product up to the GDS is making sure that you've got the operational excellence, because what they're looking for is hotel quality services and standards. So therefore, as a PMC, you've got to make sure that you've got those operational capabilities in-house to deliver on the guest experience.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I would say all the above. And on top of it, building on Christian's last point of operational excellence, I think that scalable operational excellence now is something that investors are looking for, because most of them want to grow beyond the country border, and something that is a must-have, is mandatory after the COVID era is digitalization and automation, technology. There's no scalability without that today.
Bruno, do you want to add something?
I was just going to add a comment to Brandon's point on the NOI perspective, that indeed it is perceived as a way to increase NOI. And I guess in the past year, all of our appraisals for residential rental had a line item for short stay flex living, and how was that increasing occupancy and increasing aggregate rent. But increasingly more so, it's also perceived as a way to diversify NOI as well, rather than being just exposed to one specific use. We're seeing that schemes more and more are combining uses. So typically it's a combination of student housing with build to rent and senior living, and I guess the short-term stay is increasingly perceived as a source of revenue that can diversify a mixed-use scheme and diversify the exposure that it has to the other use classes as well. So not just to increase, but also to diversify.
You're absolutely right. The diversification of the type of accommodation within a development is critical, and is happening regardless of the legislation or the planning policy. So it really is about human behavior. How are we behaving? How are we going on holiday? How are we working? Where do we work? All that sort of thing. And policy and legislation follow some distance behind what people are actually doing. So there is a resistance to some degree from established funders, from established players, to understand these variations. So a very interesting thing that not Rightmove, Airbnb have done with Greystar, who are the largest built-to-rent and flex living operator that certainly I'm aware of, is that they have negotiated a deal with Greystar. This is something they've been trialing in the States for some time now, whereby the tenant is allowed, this is in long-term accommodation, the tenant is allowed to Airbnb their apartment. They cut a deal, I think the tenant gets 65%, Airbnb get 15%, and 20% goes to the landlord. But it's all above board, and it's all out in the open rather than being done in the shadows. And what Airbnb have done, which I think is a brilliant piece of marketing, is that they've then said, oh, you can advertise your building as being Airbnb friendly. Now, to the average tenant, that's quite attractive because they can pay for their holidays by renting out the apartment. A lot of what we look at is for short stay, particularly in the UK, is corporate lets, which are very, very good as well. Don't get me wrong, that's fantastic. But bringing it into the sort of domestic market, making it a domestic dimension, is where we're seeing behavior driving economic opportunity and the diversity that increases viability in the long run. But we need our institutions, we need our policymakers, and we need our governments to understand this and allow it to happen. It's better to be doing it above board than doing it, in the shadows of a tenancy. So it's very important that we recognize these things.
Okay. Brendan, your point about the elephant in the room, no? My expertise more in affordable housing, and maybe one of the devils for affordable housing is all the flex living, okay? We try to find who is the enemy in the problems that we have, okay? I have my own opinion about the flexible living. I think that is part of the solution, is not the problem, okay? For that reason, I want to talk about this topic, that is the flexible demand cities and maybe affordable housing, no? One of the questions is, how do you think that flex living can be part of the solution for affordable housing? Maybe here in Catalonia there is a law in the parliament that is trying to cap, to top the rents in flexible housing. I think Ireland is planning to do that. Why do you think that is happening? Why do you think that the devil is flex living in affordable housing? Because it's true that there are a part of the investors, etc., that prefer to go to other markets, okay, but maybe we have to do is provide, thanks Juanjo for the question, because the question is starting with Juanjo Bande, a good friend, that sent me about if the cities can provide an offer about flex living, like hotels, etc., in order to avoid the problems in affordable housing. I would like to talk about this topic, no? About the governments, the legislation, how the flex living can provide solutions and say, okay, we are not the problem, we are the solution.
I mean, it is part of the solution. It's absolutely part of the solution in the same way as traditional housing is part of the solution. We need to just take a step back. The main reason we have a housing crisis anywhere, but in Britain, in any part of Europe, is a huge undersupply of housing, which is a national government issue. And collective governments, it seems to me, over the last few generations have just not kept pace with the housing need. That's a national issue. The other thing is that landlords generally don't set rents. The market sets rents, and that's a point that is not understood by anybody who is not directly in the business. It seems to me that it's a very simple truth that the market sets those rents. Now, if we impose rent caps, so the most recent, those rent caps have been generally used variously, but certainly in Scotland, where they introduced rent caps a couple of years ago, 4 billion left the Scottish market in 24 hours. So if you want to attract long-term investment, and I think we need to draw a distinction here between what I call what is patient capital, long-term, long-income capital, and more development capital, sort of 5 to 7 year capital. Those guys want to get in and get out. We understand that dynamic, but long-term capital stays in and wants to rent permanently in that space. But the the communication of that intent needs work. Certainly in the UK, that needs work. That it is a permanent feature and a permanent part of the housing lexicon. So, getting to your point on rent caps are dangerous. It leads to money leaving the market, and it leads to disinvestment in the assets themselves. But in terms of the affordable solution, I think flex living is a perfect solution for some of the affordable requirement, not for all of it. It is not a silver bullet, but certainly I would rather live in a flex living apartment than be stuck in a hotel if I was homeless or if I had a family that was in need. So I think what we need to articulate and express is the value that we bring to be part of the solution, not the total solution. And unfortunately, people look for silver bullets. Oh, well, we have to solve everything. No, we solve a small portion of it, but we can do it at scale, and we will do it professionally, and that's why it's good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I couldn't agree more. There are 2 points I want to make on this. The first one is I live in Barcelona.
Yeah, I know.
So I think this is the hot market for this kind of conversation. There was a rent cap on residential housing, and that moved a lot of inventory into flex housing or to be withdrawn by the market. So the main objective that the government, or in this case the town hall, had was to allow or to increase the inventory of affordable housing, gave exactly the opposite result. So less inventory and more expensive, generally speaking. So that is definitely not the way. And I think, and this is my second point, that the main issue here is what Brendan was sort of referring to before, which is the legislation goes always after the demand. And these cause that when they decide to put a framework, it is too late, and usually it is a very reductive kind of framework or very strict kind of framework. If the collaboration would start much earlier, when the demand starts and when the conversation starts, then we could get to a much better legislation, much better framework, which would allow that kind of flexibility and that kind of need. But being late becomes being, this is what you can get or what you can do and nothing else, which I think is the wrong approach.
Christian, what is your opinion about?
I would just sort of taken us away, and on the point of legislation, just taken us away a little bit from affordable housing and thinking about the concept of digital nomads. Globally there are estimated to be around about 50 million digital nomads who are moving around the world on visas that countries like Spain are offering. Which is a highly tax-efficient visa to be able to stay for 5 years and work. And it's interesting, isn't it, that from an affordable housing perspective, we're sort of slightly behind the curve, whereas actually from a digital nomad perspective, in thinking about attracting talent into countries, into cities, there does seem to be some momentum in that area.
From the point of view of an investor, because
and Malaga's taking great advantage of it, right? There's a lot of co-living being built in Malaga right now. It's taking huge advantage of that whole visa program.
Bruno, you can invest in Malaga because there are
absolutely. I absolutely agree that fundamentally it's an issue of supply and demand. I guess one of the specificities of our industry is that if 100,000 units are needed tomorrow, it takes 3-4 years to build them. And at the time that they are delivered, perhaps demand has changed. So that's what makes it so cyclical. This is a relatively new type of demand that is evolving, and certainly there's arguably a danger of over-regulating demand rather than incentivizing supply. So we're always of the view that supply should be incentivized, and by over-regulating demand, the issue is ends up constraining it.
We have 6 minutes left, 5. The last question, we talk about a lot of things, about challenge, opportunities, the problems with the government. Who has to lead the industry? Who has to lead all the challenge? Who has to lead these opportunities? all together part of how do we have to do something, okay, in order to put in order everything. Who had to lead this movement of flex living and talking with governments, talking with the civil people, with the people in, who has to lead the market?
I mean, I think the associations that come into being, the State Association I saw this morning, I think they have a very, very strong role to play. But they are only successful because they have a remit from their members. And that remit needs to be a clear remit and a clear, there must be strong agreement with that, strong alignment with that. But associations should lead on this, but the question is, what are they going to lead on? So we all know that we want a liberalization of the regulation so that we can get on and do business and deliver homes and in whatever shape or form they may come. But government audiences and society audiences are interested in different things and expect different things from us. So it's very important in that leadership that leadership has many sides to it. And again, I go back to my point on a code of practice is a very, very useful tool when you're discussing your proposal with planners or with government or policy makers and that sort of thing. So I think getting the industry to align in many respects is very, very important. But within that leadership, individual companies also need to lead. This is it's not a question of one or the other. There is group work and group think and group leadership, and then there's individual company leadership, which is hugely important as well, because that's where we get our case studies, and that's where we show examples of where we do well as a sector. So everybody's on the hook, I'm afraid.
Mm-hmm. All of you?
And I agree. I think that the important role of the associations is to build a bridge, and to bridge between governments and private sector, because that no one else is going to do it. So that's absolutely fundamental. And there's on the different interests, that's 100% clear without any doubt. But again, unless this shared leadership is taken, and there's demand, and there's a movement toward regulation, the risk is that someone else will make a decision for the sector, and very likely will be a decision based on ignorance, which is not going to be the good one or helpful.
Bruno, Christine?
Yeah, I do believe that investors also have a role to play, I guess, from an investment standpoint. We want as much certainty and predictability as possible, and I think the more we're able to articulate that message to the private sector, but also to the public sector, the more beneficial it is.
Christian?
It has to be the ecosystem. We're very fortunate in the UK. We have Brendan looking after us.
Yeah.
We got Carlos here.
Which is fantastic. And there are other associations as well, the STAA, QIT is another, Quality in Travel is another. So, I just bring it back to the point of standardization. It's the topic that we're here to discuss today. And if we standardize our systems, our processes, our approach to taking this to market, and we will then scale. And if we scale, we can then start leading. That's the way it works.
I want to add that is association, professional, and summits like Vitur Summit, where we can share our thoughts and maybe put together all ideas. Okay, 2 minutes and 30 seconds left. Okay, of course.
Yeah. Okay, I'm Bruno from Field Group, and I'd like to ask Brendan, because he had a very interesting sentence saying that standardization is for the present, but a long time journey, and if we need to see if you are prepared for it. I'm making that path in Field Group since 2019, and I would like to ask you if you think that's an optimal pace for that, and what do you think about the balance between time to market and consolidating processes?
That's a difficult one.
2 minutes.
We'll take that offline.
But I think the most important thing is to start. The time it takes and the cost of doing it is ultimately becomes a cost of doing business. But what's important is to start and to be seen to start. and then to articulate and express that you have started, and that these are the issues that we're looking at today, and tomorrow we'll look at those issues, and next week we'll look at those issues. So that there is a sense of collective responsibility and professionalism that comes through this journey of standardization. It's not easy. You know, the Association for Rental Living has been going for 10 years. We have still a mountain to climb, but we have made some progress. So the important thing is to start and build momentum. That's the most important thing.
Mm-hmm. 1 minute. Other question or not? No? Okay. Thank you very much for being with us this morning in this first panel. Brendan, Christian, Bruno, Leda, thank you very much. Otto, thank you very much for your support. Your name, sorry? Marta, thank you very much for your support too. And see you during the summit. And if you have questions for our panelists, take a coffee with them or a beer. I think it's better a beer. In a few minutes it's aperitivo hour, okay? And maybe we have chat with, because chat with a beer is better than with a microphone, I think. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.